Hi everyone, welcome to another session of the Sustainable Living Festival. Today's session is on recycling and electric buses and LNK. A few things to note is that this webinar is going to be recorded and will be made available on our LES website shortly after the session is over. Because it is a webinar, you are in listen and view mode only. If at any time you have a question, please feel free to submit your question by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. At this time, I would like to introduce Liz Elliott. Liz is the Director of Transportation and Utilities for the City of Lincoln. Liz has worked in the City Attorney's Office since 2015. She is an adjunct professor at the University of Nebraska College of Law and a part-time professor at the Lincoln campus of the University of Nebraska, Omaha. She has also served as Assistant General Counsel for the Nebraska Department of Administrative Services and a Lancaster County Deputy Public Defender, as well as working at a local law firm. She has a bachelor's degree from UNL and a law degree from the University of Denver. Liz has been in her current role since the end of February of this year. Thank you for being here, Liz. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, and thank you for let me join you guys here at the festival. It's a pleasure to be here, and hopefully I can provide some interesting information. I do have a PowerPoint, so I will go ahead and share my screen. All right, okay. And before today, what I'll talk a little bit about is our consumer recyclables collection sites, and many of you have probably heard that we're making some changes to that program. And we'll also talk about electric buses and how we are using them in our public transit system. But before we get into that, I would like to just kind of go through who we are at LTU, Lincoln Transportation and Utilities. It's a mouthful, so we frequently shorten it to LTU. It is the largest city department with nearly 600 employees. And within LTU, we have the transportation team, our utilities teams, which consist of our water system, our wastewater management, watershed management, our solid waste management, which is one of the areas we're focusing on today. And within solid waste, we've got recycling, our landfill, yard waste composting, and our demolition waste to landfill. And then the third branch of ours system is the public transit system, and that's our STARTRAN bus system. So the areas that we're going to focus on today are the solid waste system and the transit system. And we'll start with the solid waste. And before we kind of jump into recycling, I want to just give a little background on our solid waste management program. When people think of trash, they usually don't think much about what happens to it after they've rolled their dumpster out to the curb. But once you've rolled it out there, it's picked up by trash haulers and it's taken to our landfill. And our solid waste management consists of two locations here in Lincoln. We have the Bluff Road landfill, and then we have our 48th Street transfer station and demolition waste landfill. At the Bluff Road landfill, this is where your garbage haulers take your garbage. We take in 300,000 tons of garbage a day. It's about 400 vehicles on most days. We also have, when the trash kind of compost breaks down, it creates gas and it has to be managed. So we also have a system that handles that gas, and it's our leachate system there at Bluff Road. Our second location is at 48th Street. This is where small vehicles can take small loads of trash. It's then compacted together and ultimately transferred to the Bluff Road landfill, hence the transfer station. The other part of that location is the construction and demolition drop-off. The material taken out of construction sites, tearing down buildings, the drywall that's removed, those types of things also go to this 48th Street location. The last leg of our solid waste management is our diversion programs. The diversion programs are those that do exactly what it says. They divert items from our landfill. And this includes our WRAP program, our waste reduction and recycling program. They also provide education about composting, reusing material, and recycling. But obviously the largest part of our diversion program is our recycling collection program. LTU and the city have been committed to recycling for a long time because it makes sense. It helps grow the local economy. Landfills take up a lot of space, and land is expensive. It's hard to come by, and so it reduces the need for that. It also conserves our natural resources and reduces greenhouse gas. We have been recycling here at the City of Lincoln. Most people are surprised to know that our recycling collection site system has served our community for about 30 years. And that's something that we are really proud of. And we really want to make a strong, sustainable program here for the City of Lincoln because we do believe that it is important to have. Question that we often get is, what do we recycle? We recycle pretty much anything that's possible, which is aluminum and tin cans, plastic products, newspaper, mixed paper, corrugated cardboard, and also glass bottles and jars. We recycle here in Lancaster County about 7,000 tons a year. So when you think about that, we were trying to figure out how do you visualize that? It's equivalent to about 1,400 elephants or 777 T-Rexes if you're big into dinosaurs. And that's a lot of recyclable material that is diverted from our landfills every year. Right now, our system as it exists today costs about $3.5 million to run the program. And with the costs and the markets for the recyclable material, that price is likely only to continue to rise if we continue our system the way it is. And because to pay for that program, we would have to raise rates to $12 a ton for every ton of garbage that goes into the landfill. And although the exact cost impact for each person varies depending on your collection service provider, we believe that would equate to approximately $4 per household per month for your garbage service. All of the costs of operating the landfills, the education programs, recycling sites, the transfer station, our household hazardous waste disposal, and our health department's waste diversion is paid by our haulers when they bring the waste to the landfill. If any of these costs for operations go up, we have to raise what we call our tipping fee in order to continue that service. The tipping fee is made up of landfill fee and occupation tax. And so the cost of collecting the materials at our recycling has increased substantially. This is also the first year we've ever been charged by the processor of the recyclables to sort and sell the materials to manufacturers. And we're no longer receiving revenue from the materials that we are recycling. And so that has really increased our costs for this program. And the one thing that I think is maybe misunderstood is that the city does not receive revenues from curbside recycling. That is goes entirely to the haulers. But we do recognize that that is the most efficient way. And so it is something that we do encourage and support, that people do curbside recycling. But the $3.5 million is not sustainable. And so even without the pandemic, we would have to have made changes to our system. And so we had started talking about it pre-pandemic, but then the pandemic hit and made budgets even tighter. And so we have had to really kind of ramp up our discussions and ideas on that. So currently our program consists of 19 sites here in the city, as well as 19 sites out in the county. And a lot of people don't realize that collection sites such as in Firth and Hickman are paid for by the city of Lincoln. And what we are moving to is 4 to 5 larger consolidated recyclables collection sites. We decided after looking at everything that this is the right size program for the city of Lincoln. The decision to consolidate these sites was not easy, but because the cost of this program is shared by everyone in the city, we have an obligation to provide the most efficient service possible. So these 4 to 5 sites will be larger than the current sites, and they will be able to hold all of the recycling. Right now, if you drive to any collection site here in town, you'll see 3 types of containers. We've got the 2 cubic yard containers, the smallest. We have our 8 cubic yard containers, and then our 40, our roll-offs. Each one of these containers takes a separate truck to pick up and haul away, which is very inefficient, not only for the trucks and for the system and getting things cleaned out, but it's also not the best method, maybe efficiently for climate issues with all of those trucks driving around town. So we looked at that. How could we do that? Oh, I apologize. My system just went black. So, okay. It looks like we might be back up and running. Sorry about that. And so what we wanted to do, okay, we're back rolling. So each one of these is very different. You can see them comparatively side by side. The smaller ones, kind of the medium ones, and then the larger roll-offs. And this planet, and here you'll see if you go to the recycling sites, and these are the roll-off sites. Each of the containers are divided. We've got the glass, your paper, your cardboard containers. So with the expansion, this is a kind of a mock-up of what a new, larger, expanded site location would look like. This one is based off of our Seacrest location, and the construction on that project is expected to begin within the month. And so, as you can see, it's much larger, and I have kind of a video reenactment of this. And not only will these sites be able to handle all of the recycling and have the same capacity as what currently exists, we're actually increasing our capacity, and we will have additional room for recycling material. One of the biggest complaints and concerns that we heard from the users is that there were overflowing issues at times. And so we are hoping that with this expansion that we will be able to minimize any kind of overflow issues that we've experienced. And so we think that will really be a benefit for those that are using it. The other benefit of consolidating these from the 19 to the 4 or 5 is that we will also be able to provide better security, and this will help prevent illegal dumping, which is probably the second biggest complaint that we get. Recently, as you may know, we created a new city ordinance that makes illegal dumping a criminal offense, where individuals can receive up to a $500 fine, up to 6 months in jail, or a combination of both. This is really, we take this seriously. We want these sites to be user-friendly, clear of debris and trash. And so this is something that we want to really increase and hopefully curb with these new larger collection sites. Now, we still know that this plan will have a big impact on a number of individuals because the locations will not be as conveniently located for many. And our solid waste management team are working hard to make sure that all 4 quadrants of the city have access to a location with adequate capacity and efficient 7-day-a-week service. And our team has put in a lot of thought and consideration into possible options. The location of the drop-off sites is a top priority for us. And we realize that because we are reducing the number of sites, we really have to be wise and strategic about where we create these much larger sites. You may have heard we recently announced 2 of the 4 or 5 final site locations, one of them being at Seacrest, and then the other one is right next to our North 48th Street transfer station at 5101 North 48th Street. We are currently searching for locations in the Northwest and the Southwest, and possibly a central location. And when we were looking into where do we put these sites, what's the best places to put this, we looked into a number of factors. One, the biggest factor was, can the existing site be expanded? Most of the current sites just cannot be expanded, and so they can't accommodate the multiple large roll-offs like we saw in kind of the model view of it. Another factor considered was the cost it would take to purchase property or expand the sites. Most people don't realize that we don't own those recycling collection sites. We have agreements with those property owners to allow us to put those sites on their property. The only site that is owned by the city is the North 48th Street location. So that one, we didn't have to purchase property, we already had it. We do have to put some cost into expanding it, but that's a much smaller cost than if we had to go out and buy property and do construction for it. So that was another big factor that went into our decisions there. And then finally, although we did not do any formal studies regarding the impact of specific community groups, we do realize that this does impact people in our community. So when deciding where to locate the sites, we wanted to make sure that we had something available in each quadrant of the city to minimize as much as possible how far people have to drive. So like I said, we're still looking for a couple of the locations, and hopefully we will have those here in the near future. As soon as we do have those locations, we will be announcing those and getting that information out as soon as possible. The other issue and factor that we were taking into consideration is even with some of our current sites, a few of them would have to be closed due to property ownership changing hands. And we did not have agreements with the new property owners. So there were a few sites such as Traybert Hall on South Street that would have closed regardless of any change in plans. And so that always impacts the system as well. We do acknowledge that there may be some individuals who choose to stop recycling because the drop-off locations are not as conveniently located to them. However, statistics that we've gathered from the curbside collectors show that those who do curbside recycling actually recycle 4.5 times more material. Therefore, we think any reduction that we might see from those who stop recycling may very well be balanced out by those who elect to do curbside recycling and start recycling even more material. And so we believe with this plan, the rate of recycling will very likely remain the same and may even possibly result in a slight increase in the amount of material recycled. But we continuously look for ways to provide our services without adding additional expenses to citizens. Our ultimate goal is to create a system that is sustainable for the city, as well as encourages as much recycling as possible. And we think with this new program, going to the 4 or 5 larger sites, that saves us $2 million and avoids higher garbage costs, both to the haulers and to every resident in the community. We think this is the right size program for the city of Lincoln. And so hopefully everyone will like the new sites, and we hope to have those up and running as soon as possible. But at this point, I think I would open it up to any questions before we go over to the STARTRAN.
Thank you so much, Liz, for that great presentation. We did have some pre-submitted questions that people had asked us, and it looks like we're starting to get a few questions coming in through our Q&A. And just to remind everyone that if you do have a question that you'd like to ask Liz, go ahead and click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and just submit it, and we'll be able to see it. And so to start off the Q&A, Mark would like to know, how is certain waste like motor oil or used paint currently handled?
On those would be more for the hazardous material side of our program. That there is a hazardous material collection site at the North 48th station. You may have also seen kind of occasionally throughout town. And then on the website that we have, it does list the materials for that you can deliver there. And it does provide some additional material. So we do keep that separate because a lot of those types of the paint, the aerosol cans, things like that have a few more hazards to them. And so they are treated a little differently and are not intermingled with the paper, glass, those types of things. I would really encourage everyone for those to go to the website that has what materials accepted and the hours of the hazardous material drop-off site.
Great, thank you. Cody would like to know, how does recycling grow the local economy?
I think it's a number of different ways. With recycling, the advances on how to use the material continue to grow. And I think that's areas where the local universities are increasing more research. How can we use some of this material? One of the emphasis of the diversion program is not just recycling, but reusing material. And I think we're seeing more and more businesses across the nation and the world of people using material in creative ways. And so I think it boosts the economy with the innovation, the new businesses, and the universities and the work and studies that they're putting into that. So I think that's just a couple ways that it helps the economy locally and in the nation.
Another question is, when is cardboard considered unsuitable for recycling? I know there's been a lot of questions just with the new initiatives going on, and are pizza boxes able to be recycled, or what would you say about that?
That's a great question. Corrugated cardboard that is clean and dry is recyclable. Even cardboard that has been wet but dries, that can also be recycled. Cardboard that is wet, too wet or wet enough to fall apart when unloaded at the processing facility, that's typically when it cannot be recycled. The other type is waxed cardboard. It unfortunately is not able to be recycled. And then going specifically to the pizza boxes is cardboard that is contaminated with food residue, oil, grease, blood, hazardous materials. That can't be recycled. But most pizza boxes, both the top and the bottom, can be recycled as long as we've kind of scrape off the cheese and the meat crumbles. That's typically clean enough that can be recycled safely.
That is really good to know. Daniel had a question. He was wondering, are mercury light bulbs considered hazardous waste material to be dropped off at hazardous material sites?
Would have to double check on that and to see if those are accepted. Actually, we can see if I can do this on the fly. I'm not sure. I would have to double check. Again, I would go to the City of Lincoln website and go to the keyword recycle, and it will take you over. And actually, I'll stop sharing my screen here real quick. And do that. Maybe it's not going to let me here. No, it won't let me switch over. But if you go over to the recycling, it will have a list of items that are recyclable. And I apologize, I don't know that one off the top of my head, but it should be listed on there whether or not it's accepted.
And what was your website?
If you go to the City of Lincoln, lincoln.ne.gov, and the keyword search, which is off to the left side, if you type in recycle, it'll bring you up to that website.
Another question that we had, where does all of our recycling go?
Question. On the recycling is, I'm going to get to something here real quick to see if I can show. I apologize. Was
That's
hoping
okay.
to share something, but I'm not able to do that. But well, the recycling collectors can choose from a couple of material processors that are operating here in Lincoln. We have GreenQuest, First Star Fiber, Recycling Enterprises. The processors remove the contamination and they prepare the recyclables for transportation to mills. The recyclables collected at the city-operated collection sites is currently through First Star Fiber for processing, and each of the local processors determines the ultimate mill that they take it to. And we don't control the downstream activities. We do remain in regular contact with local processors, and we're confident that the processed material is being sent to operating mills. Occasionally, we do have a load of recyclables that has to be put in a landfill rather than taken to material processor, but those are typically ones that have been really contaminated with oil or paint or have been damaged by a fire. So it's pretty infrequent when that happens, but occasionally that does happen.
Thank you so much, Liz, for answering all of those questions. If anyone has any additional questions, feel free to submit those. And then after Liz goes on and talks about the electric buses here in Lincoln, we might be able to answer some more recycling questions.
Great. All right. So that takes us to our public transit service, who has some really exciting things going on right now. One of the surprising things I'm always surprised at is that how many people STARTRAN assists every year. And most people don't realize how many people use and need to use the bus system here in town. During non-pandemic times, the pandemic has definitely affected the public transit system, but during non-pandemic times, STARTRAN travels more than 2 million miles every year, and they provide nearly 69,000 passenger trips every week. When we've talked to our STARTRAN riders, they say 42% of them use it to and from work. And so this is a really big and vital service to our community's economy. And I think it will play an even more of a vital role as we try to recover during the pandemic and try to boost and get people back to work. And each year we strive to serve more and more people in our community. And in 2019, we received an award, for our highest increase in ridership among urban transit providers in Nebraska. And we are really proud of this because we're improving our routes, we're improving our timing, and that has allowed more people to use the service. They're able to get to work quicker and on time. They're able to get to their doctor's appointments. And so we're really proud that our community is taking advantage of the system and using it and finding that it is helpful. The pandemic, though, as I mentioned, really kind of threw everyone through the loop, including our STARTRAN group. Some of the things that we did during the pandemic during the pandemic time was we increased our bus cleaning schedule and how we sanitize buses. We always clean them every day, but this time we invested in some additional sprayers to sanitize the buses more often and give it kind of a deeper clean. We also were affected by our ridership, obviously. A number of our passengers are students, college students, high school students. So with them being out of school, that really reduced our numbers. We then had local businesses such as Kawasaki that temporarily closed, which meant even fewer riders. In June, we were hovering around 2,600 riders a day. Our normal ridership during the summer is about 4,000 riders a day. So that's almost a 50% drop in our ridership. In April, we made a really tough decision to reduce routes, and we went to our Saturday schedule, which meant reduced hours, and not all of our routes were running. One of the big changes was the downtown trolley wasn't running on the Saturday schedule. And that helped a number of that helped for a number of reasons. Obviously, with fewer people riding, we had buses that were just driving around empty all day, and that's not efficient. It's not good for the emissions. It's not good for the roads or the buses just to be out there empty. And it also, we had fewer drivers than needed. And so when you're driving a bus, you're serving the community, you're in very tight, confined spaces, as this photo here shows. And so our drivers really were putting themselves at risk. And we acknowledged that, and we wanted to keep our drivers safe, but we also needed to keep our system running because it is so essential. And so what we decided to do was not only go on Saturday schedules, but also to put our drivers on rotating weeks, where half of the drivers were working one week while the other half of the drivers were at home staying healthy, and then they would rotate. Every other week, that's how they would, or every week, that's what they would do. And that really worked. We were able to keep all of our drivers healthy, our system's still running, and our passengers, we also implemented social distancing. You'll see on the left picture here where we have signs where we blocked off and staggered seating as much as we could to keep people, riders on the bus, socially distanced to help ensure as much as we could their safety. We also started an on-demand service for those who needed and wanted to socially distance even more. This wasn't similar to a rideshare program like Lyft or Uber, where we limited the riders to 2 riders at a time. It did begin a little earlier than our fixed routes, and it went a little later than our fixed routes as well. So it also helped accommodate those who might have to work earlier, but the fixed routes had changed. Because this on-demand, though, is a higher level of service, it's door to door. You don't have to go to a bus stop and wait. We did charge $5 per ride for that service. That service is still running. And as you have probably heard, as of today, we are now back to full regular service. And so this is the first day today that we are back normal fixed routes. So we'll be starting a little earlier. We'll be running a little later. Our downtown trolley is back running today. But we will also keep the on-demand service going as well for those who need to and want to socially distance and don't want to be on a bus with multiple people. So public transit is a vital role in our climate resiliency. If people take buses, we have fewer cars on the road. Fewer cars mean less carbon emissions. However, regular buses also put out carbon emissions. So STARTRAN is investing in no emissions or low emission buses, specifically electric and CNG. And this video shows one of our new electric buses that we've recently purchased, and they're plugging it in to charge it. Instead of going to a gas pump, it's hooked up to this electric charger. And those are some of the charging stations that we have now recently installed. We're really excited about these buses. We did receive grants to assist in purchasing the electric buses and the charging stations. The charging stations are currently being installed, and it was great. We had the opportunity to partner with LES. We needed, with the help of installing the charging stations, we also needed a transformer installed so we could get enough electricity to our facility to accommodate these charging systems. So we can't thank LES enough for working with us and assisting in getting that up and ready for us. We currently have 4 electric buses. We have 6 more ordered. Those should be delivered in November, and then we hope to have them actually in service in December. And we plan to purchase 3 more electric buses in 2022. The biggest benefits of the electric buses, obviously, is the emissions. Each bus reduces carbon emissions by 1,690 tons over 12 years. One thing that we've heard from our riders is that the buses are much quieter. And I don't know if you've ever ridden on a bus, but the buses, you do kind of get a lot of road noise and the diesel engine noise. These are quiet. You can hear a pin drop if you're riding on one of these buses. We also save fuel. It's up to give or take 17.5 miles per gallon versus 4.6 miles per gallon. And we do have some lower maintenance costs on these. The batteries for each of these buses has a warranty of 12 years. So that's also very helpful. And we do believe that according to the manufacturer, one electric bus saves 100 to 160 tons of greenhouse gases per year when you're comparing that to a 40-foot diesel bus. So we think that's a huge benefit to us. And again, we did get grants for this, and LES did partner with us and provided $4,000 in-kind match on this grant, which has assisted in getting these charging stations up and running for the buses. Once all 10 electric buses are in operation, 56% of our fleet will be either electricity or CNG. And so our hope eventually is to become zero emissions, I think is the ultimate goal, but at least the low to zero emissions is our goal. And hopefully we will be able to convert our entire fleet over to either CNG or electric in the next probably 10 years, we're hopeful. Each full charge on the batteries provide enough energy for the bus to run a full 8-hour shift, which is great because we don't have to return back to the facility to charge mid-shift. We don't have to fuel up. What they just do is at the end of the shift, they bring the bus in, they charge it, and you're good to go for the next one. And so we're really excited about this. We think it's a great way to go. It kind of complements all of the other things that we're doing across the city, in particular the solid waste management team. And yeah, we're looking forward to it, and I encourage everybody to get a ride out on the electric buses because it is definitely a different ride compared to the old buses that you might be used to. So with that, I hopefully have reserved enough time for any additional questions.
Thank you so much, Liz. We had a few questions come in during that. What routes are the EV buses currently running?
They are not dedicated to a specific route, and so you will see them across the city, and it kind of just depends on scheduling, whether or not we have other buses that might be in the shop for repairs or anything like that. So they are not set to just one particular route.
Okay. Another question, do the electric and the CNG buses take priority when not all buses are being used?
At this point, right now they are, and that's for a number of reasons. During the pandemic, when we were running the reduced schedules, we could accommodate all routes with the newer buses. That was helpful for emissions, but it also allowed us to do rear door entry. Because they are newer, we're able to open doors differently than we can on the older buses. So for that reason, they were a priority. Right now, we need every bus that we can. So we are using all of our buses. Eventually, if we can start getting the new buses in and retiring old buses, these will definitely take priority.
How long do the buses take to charge?
I'd have to double check, but I think we can do, I want to say 4 hours for a full charge, but I will have to double check that to make sure I'm not wrong, but I believe it's 4 hours for a full charge.
And then one other question, what new initiatives would you like to see in Lincoln within the next 5 to 10 years?
I really think going more the environmental friendly, looking at these low or no emissions. Like I said, with STARTRAN, our goal is to have our entire fleet CNG or electric. We're also doing active transportation. And so in our transportation department, which we didn't really talk about today, we have the bike share program, and in September, we're rolling out the scooter program. And so I think those active transportations, the public transportations is a really big initiative that I would like to see grow and continue to be utilized more and more every year. They are great, one, just to reduce traffic congestion. They save our roads and having to redo them all the time, but it also gives the environment the reduced carbon emissions. And so I think that's one big area I would like to see grow.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here today. And we really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to talk with us. And I'd like to remind everyone that as you close this webinar, a survey will pop up. Please feel free to take a minute and send that out so we can better learn how to serve you. So Liz, thank you again so much.
Thank you, and always feel free to email me I can always give you my contact information, but reach out to us. We're happy to have these conversations and get ideas and feedback. So please reach out.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.